no Nigeria. Rusheka Sambawa, Nifeka Bezigo, Erosheka Kawa Koda Kodinofo. Rusha Siya Biati Haba Kasa Dayake Timinira Alafia Kodo Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Nigeria bu kasawa, kasa duna, oduna, oduna. Kasa duna, Nigeria bu kasawa. Kasa duna, oduna, oduna. Kasa duna, biawasa bayesa state. Kasa duna, city rude yola. Kasa duna, biawasa kaduna. Kasa duna, city rude Bini city. Kasa duna, duna, oh duna. Oh duna, oh duna, oh duna. Kasa duna, Nigeria's our country. What a blessed country, oh country, oh country. A blessed country you come from Bayelsa State. God bless you down to Yola. A blessed nation you come from Kaduna. God bless you down to Benin City. Correct country you vote to Luck Jonathan. What a lucky vote, God bless Nigeria. Correct country you vote good luck Jonathan. God bless us, what a lucky vote. Correct country, country, oh country. Oh country, oh country, oh country. Correct. Viewers, you're all welcome to the GUOSA Language Television, your action channel. We shall be singing the GUOSA language today. Of course, you all know by now what is the GUOSA language. GUOSA is a language for the people, from the people, and by the people. In other words, linguistic democracy. And GUOSA is evolution of words from Nigerian languages and across the Nigerian country to the neighboring West African regional countries or the ECOWAS, so that in the future the West Africa and Nigeria will have a common indigenous lingua franca, a similar experience like the Swahili for the East. How do we get the GUOSA language? It's evolution of words, words, words. All right, today we are not teaching the GUOSA, but a song in the GUOSA titled Abasi Bia, and I am Alex Igbineweka, and the song goes like this.
understand. Okay, so that's right.
During my prayers at different aspects of the prayer, I'm going to ask you to respond amen. So let us bow our heads and pray. O God of Abraham, O God of Isaac, O God of Jacob, O God of Nigeria, O God of all nations, we are blessed together here today on this memorable occasion of International Conference of GUOSA-LANGUAGE. You told us in the Bible that where two or three are gathered together in your name, then you are in the midst of them. May you be the cornerstone of our conference. Guide us and let us experience your abiding presence. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Mighty God, we at this time thank you for all the blessings, for making this conference possible, for all those who have traveled far and near, including those from Nigeria, our friends, guests, and our speakers. We thank you, God, for each and every one of us, what we brought to this conference, and also for what we will learn from our gathering. So God, give us reasons to be always thankful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Oh God, you are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. You made it possible for Alex Beneweka to begin and formulate the GUOSA language in 1965. Open our hearts, our minds to see the values and importance of GUOSA language. Help us to see the necessity of having a lingua franca, a national language that will foster our unity, make us strong, facilitate our communication and commerce. All powerful God, help us to embrace and see the importance of GUOSA language in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. O great God, assist us to generate modus operandi, a mode of operation, strategies on how we can promote GUOSA language and trigger the interest of our people.
We are
We pray that our leaders, government officials, relevant agencies, we advocate for GUOSA language, integrate it into the educational system, and make it accessible in elementary schools, colleges, and universities. In Jesus' name we pray. Mighty Father, we ask you to inspire generous donors. Help us to motivate philanthropists, organizations, individuals to give donation to this worthy cause of GUOSA language and assist in publishing the GUOSA dictionary. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Great God, we ask that you empower our speakers today so that they can present effective information and inspire us to go out there and make GUOSA language a reality. In the mighty name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, Reverend, for that powerful prayer, and we really appreciate it. At this point, we go straight to our program, and we have the registration is passed, a reflection, that's what we just had, the introduction of moderator, participants, officials. I have to first of all introduce the MC, moderator / MC. That's no one else than our wonderful Madam Mrs. Molly Uzo, and she is here. Please give a round of applause to Mrs. Uzo. Thank you very much. And then at that, we can now let her take the control at this point, following our program. Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you very much, Alex. It is wonderful that you have been working on the GUOSA language tirelessly for several years, almost 50 years now. So we are glad we are here today to join hands with you and see where we can take this forward. So with us here to get this going, we have, let me start from my right. Please introduce yourself.
Okay.
And let us know what you would like to accomplish today in this GUOSA language conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Isoken Omokaro, an architect by profession. I was invited here by Mr. Alex Newaka, and this is actually exploratory for me. Try to know what this is all about and how far we intend to go with it. Thank you.
Sorry, can you also please give us your background in Nigeria, where you came from and the language you speak there? Thank you.
I was born and raised in Benin City, Edo State, Nigeria. I will speak Edo language, which is the one spoken in the whole state of Edo. I left there 36 years ago, so I've been far away from home. And wherever we speak Nigerian languages, I'm attracted there, because that is my origin and so forth. Thank you.
My name is Reverend Tulimanto, and I'm from Delta area, Warri, but my hometown is Orogu. But you know, I was born in Benin, and I speak a bit of Benin Koyo. But after my seminary education, that was when I went to Warri. And I ministered in Sapele, Warri, then eventually came to the United States in 1981. And I've been here since then. I had some connection with Alex Winniweka a couple of years ago. We're talking about the GUOSA language. And so this is the first time that we're having this conference. One of the things that I'm really looking at in terms of this program is to really see how this GUOSA language can be a reality. We've been talking about it, Alex has been talking about it for quite some time now. But how is this going to be real, to make it happen, especially back in our country? But this is what we're saying, that we're looking forward, maybe wanted to have a national language. So one of the things I did suggest to Alex is to see that if we can get a committee together, people who will really work on this, to be able to reach out, to other, especially the power that be. I'm glad that we have our great speakers, from Nigeria, and they'll be a great, access to us to be able to see how we can connect with, those who could really help us to make this thing happen, especially those, in the government. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barclays Fowlbury Ayakuroma. I am currently the Executive Secretary of National Institute for Cultural Orientation. Before then, I was Executive Director by Bayelsa State Council for Arts and Culture. So it shows that I've been in the culture sector. As an Izoman, I spent most of my early years in Urobo land. So I was an Urobo man in totally, but along the line, you know, as we discussed today, once you don't speak a language, it doesn't speak you. It leaves you for, you know, as long as you live it. So I cannot, you know, say if really I'm an Urobo man now. But the interesting thing is that, like I tell people, I can never be sold, you know, in Urobo land.
That's right.
I've also lived in Lagos, where I picked up, you know, some Yoruba, you know, words. You know, if you are in Lagos for 1 or 2 years, you are forced to, you know, speak. But most times, starting from the rotten ones to the good ones. I'm here because for 2 years plus, about 3 years now, we've been in touch with Alex, and I realized that he's been very, very passionate about this GUOSA language initiative. I am one that is very much committed to Nigeria having, you know, a lingua franca. And in those days, there was an idea of Wazobia, but along the line, it wasn't sustained. But I want a situation whereby Nigerians will be versatile in your own mother tongue, and one that we can use to communicate, you know, with others. We know very well that in the northern part of the country, Hausa language is more becoming a lingua franca for them, because most of them, Nasarawa, you know, Kaduna, Kano, Jigawa, all those states, they speak the Hausa language and their own indigenous languages. But I think in the wider, you know, society, in the Nigerian nation, we need a language that everybody can understand and can communicate easily. And of course, that does not stop your own, you know, indigenous language, your own mother tongue, you know, being spoken also. And I believe by the time we start gradually, our people say to start to cry is very, very difficult. But by the time the tears start, you know, flowing, running down your cheeks, of course, it becomes a natural thing. So we know that the initiative here is something that will experience some speed breakers, some bumps, and so on. And we are happy that on our own parts, Nico, I'm here with, he will introduce himself, to identify with him, to let him know that we are passionate about our indigenous languages. We run a training school, and in that training school, we make it compulsory for students to learn an indigenous language other than your own. If you are Yoruba and you can't speak Yoruba, for us in NICO, we think that is your own problem. Your parents should take responsibility. Learn another language so that you can communicate appreciably in that very language. So that is why we are here, and we believe that it is the beginning of a journey, and we are going to get there. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Alex Omije. I'm from the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, Abuja, Nigeria. I came with my boss, and we have come to identify, you know, the initiative by Alex for the GUOSA language. I'm from Edo State, Nigeria, and the Asian-speaking part of Edo State. Our language is Esan language, and I speak the language very well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I hope so. So we are proud of our languages, and we are committed to promoting these languages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. my understanding of the MC, by the way, my name is Molly Uzo again, and I'm from Imo State originally. That's where I was born, Igbo, and my husband is from Anambra State. They also speak Igbo, so I speak Igbo there. So I do understand a little bit of Yoruba and a little bit of Hausa from traveling for vacations to visit my uncles in those places when we were younger, and when you're younger it's easier to pick other languages. So I'm very glad to be here today.
So we sing the Nigerian national anthem. You have it in at the back of this booklet.
Thank you, everybody, for your good voices, and in pushing this forward. So next in the agenda is a presentation from all the way from Nigeria, from the Nigerian National Institute of Cultural Orientation. And that's coming from Dr. Barclays F. Oyakoroma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Incidentally, when we got the notice for this event, we were told that we were going to present for just 10 minutes. I don't know if that directive still stands.
I think we got more than 10 minutes.
Okay, so maybe I'll just add a few more minutes, but I'm going to be very, very brief. What I looked at is the imperative of learning Nigerian indigenous languages. And I purpose to let us have an idea of what my organization, NICO, is doing. I mentioned the fact that, Nigeria has been plagued by the domineering, influence of foreign cultures. And these cut across music, food, dress pattern, languages, and so on. And because of this, every day our cultures are dying. Our cultures are going under. our children do not speak our indigenous languages again because of English, which has become the basic medium of communication. And of course, you know very well that language, is a vehicle that drives our culture. Once a child learns an indigenous language, indigenous knowledge comes in. And of course, his worldview, everything will change because of that very language. And language binds us together. You were not here, my brother, when we started. Just discussed, we're introducing ourselves. And I found out that where, I was doing my primary school in those days, Reverend Father's place. Of course, I was there and left to another rural community where Agbaru, where I finished my primary school. So that little knowledge of the indigenous language has brought us together. So you can just imagine you are going around in the States here and you meet people who speak your own indigenous language. Of course, the closeness will be there. That is what a language does by binding people together, by making people live as one. I'll give us an example. There was recently a kidnap case of an Hausa man who was going to Port Harcourt for a conference. And along the line, he gained his freedom and got to a place and met the man to help him so that to show him to the main road where he can find his way. And the Igbo man refused. And when he refused, he said, drop your gun, then I will help you. The Hausa man refused. Then the next thing, the Igbo man started speaking Hausa. And the Hausa man said, you speak Hausa? I said, yes, I was in Jos, and it was the crisis that made me to leave Jos. And as far as I'm concerned, the Hausa man is my brother. There and then, the Hausa man handed over the gun which he had taken from the kidnappers. And of course, the Igbo man helped him, gave him, had him to clean up, gave him food, then took him to where he can get vehicles back up north. That is what language does, binding people, together. Now, I mentioned the fact that the national policy on education has stipulations which are not followed. Our MC knows that much, the problems we are encountering. It states that at the primary school, at the secondary school level, secondary school children are supposed to learn the language of their own area and any of the three major Nigerian languages, Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. The idea is that, just like we talked at the beginning, if this were to be done, our children, maybe my own children will speak Izon and maybe Hausa or Yoruba or Igbo, as the case may be. And sociologists, linguists, psychologists have told us that a child can learn, more than 10 languages at his or her early stage of learning. So, if we want our children to learn the Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, which was termed Wazobia languages, it's very, very possible. Now, our friend, our brother Alex, is coming up with GUOSA. The children can also learn that conveniently because of, their makeup. We looked at the provisions of the national policy on education to see that there's something wrong with the implementation. The policy is not being followed. Now that leaves us with the use of English, which has become the lingua franca. Because at all levels of official business, education, commerce, industry, and dispensation of justice, everything is in English. If you go to government departments and agencies, communication is in English, both in written and oral communication. In those days, of course, in the school system, you know very well that the indigenous languages were taught, but unfortunately, the tradition from the whites that your own indigenous language, instead of calling it indigenous language, they say it's vernacular. And of course, if you speak vernacular, you are in trouble. You are flogged and so on. So that children, are afraid to speak their indigenous languages. For me, as a person, I do my learning, I do my thinking in the indigenous language because that is what I started off in life. Okay, now I want to, the language question. Yes, this is very, very important because in Nigeria, we are told, there are over 500 indigenous languages in Nigeria. And some of these languages, close to 10 of them are going extinct because they are not spoken. Again, in River State, for example, there's a language, Ibani, is going extinct. Bukuma is another language that is, going extinct because they are not spoken again. And of course, most of our languages are endangered. UNESCO predicts that if care is not taken, Igbo language will go extinct in the next 15 years. And I said that if Igbo will go extinct in 15 years, then some of the smaller ones like Ijo Uroko should be extinct in 5 years, which is something of serious concern. Now, I don't want to go into area of identifying languages. Okay, but the position we have made is that the use of Nigerian languages, indigenous languages, we have a challenge there. Many of the languages are going extinct. They are hardly spoken. The school system is not helping matters. And of course, many Nigerians are indifferent to the learning and speaking of indigenous languages in the homes. And our children do not take pride in learning the languages. Rather, they say, I can't speak my language, as if it's you get a medal for saying you cannot speak the indigenous language again. Just recently, here in the United States, there was an instance where I'm sure we all know Chief Zebediah. Now, he saw there was a program he came for, and he saw a young boy whom he knew in Enugu, and he spoke Igbo to this boy. And the next thing, the mother started insulting Zebediah for speaking Igbo to this boy. And the thing made headline news in Nigeria. I called Zebediah, I said, what happened? That where is the woman based? Only for him to tell me that the woman only came to US for holidays, on vacation. So if a woman staying her life in Enugu can now do that, you can just imagine those of you that are out there. That means your children cannot even greet me, in the indigenous language if I visit. So that's the challenge that we have. Then I went on to talk about what NICO is doing, because the imperative is the need for us to revive our indigenous language, the learning of our indigenous languages. Because we don't know much about NICO, I took some time to give a background of NICO. NICO is a joint initiative of UNESCO and the federal government of Nigeria. UNESCO declared 1988 to 1997 as a World Decade for Cultural Development. That is the time UNESCO made member countries to realize that culture is very central to development. And we have since realized that many programs, they don't succeed in Nigeria because governments, various state governments do not think of the cultural background of the people. If you are coming to cite a project, you have to know, the cultural background of the people, what they like, what they don't like, what they appreciate, and what they do not appreciate. So these are, and of course, as of 1988, Nigeria came out with the cultural policy. And one of the organs that was recommended was the National Institute for Cultural Orientation. And of course, it was the edict setting it up in 93 of 1993. So the organization is 21 years as we speak, because it was August 17th. That explains why the convocation ceremony of the Institute, we organized it around August 17th. Just last Saturday that we did the convocation in Lagos. Okay, we talked about the mandate of NICO, the vision statement, to be the apex and leading cultural training institute in Nigeria. Talked about the mission statement. All these are things we can easily get on the website or through some of our publications. That's our head office in Zone 7, then our Lagos Liaison Office, where we have the training school. We have a zonal office structure in all the 6 geopolitical zones, because there's nothing you do in Nigeria and you don't think of the zones. And from the zonal structure, we are going to the state structure. I think on page 2 or 3 of the newsletter, you will see the organization of the institute. Like I mentioned, we just had a convocation program. We run diploma, postgraduate diploma in cultural administration. Then some of the programs we do, we highlighted, but the important one we are talking about is the Nigerian Indigenous Language Program. We have a 4-week intensive Indigenous language program. The program is targeted at children during the long vacation. As of now, as we speak, it's running in all our zonal and state offices. And from the long vacation program, we have graduated to the weekend program, because you can't do a program for 4 weeks, then wait till the next year again, then you do it again. So we came out with a weekend edition, so that those who don't have the time for the long vacation program can also do that during the weekend. And we are coming out with what we call language in the barracks. Research experience has taught us that every military or paramilitary barracks is a mini Nigeria. All the ethnic groups are there. But the unfortunate thing is that most of them don't speak their indigenous languages. So we are taking the language program to them. That is the language in the barracks, the language quiz on television. You will see one of the programs we are coming out with at the inside back cover of the newsletter. The Indigenous Language Program started in 2007 with 3 major, the 3 Wazobia languages, but as of now, we have 14 languages that are there, apart from the big 3, the Wazobia. We have Izon, TV, Efik, Bagi, Lupe, Fufulde, Isoko, Chamba, Boatrie, Batunu, and Tangele. I'm sure some of these languages, we are hearing them for the first time. The Chamba is in Yola axis. Boatie 2 is from Yola axis. Tangale from Gombe, that's one of the languages. Then Batonu is from Kwara. So these are languages that are not widely spoken. So NICO is looking at the possibility of children, being interested in all these things. And the approaches we have highlighted there: classroom teaching, proverbs and aphorisms, recitation songs, going to the market, dressing, hairstyling, cooking, major cultural practices. So in learning the languages, we are looking at the cultural context, the cultural background of the people. So the participants learn all those things. That's from NICO cultural clubs. The programs that we run are all indigenous. So the children are made to plait hair, they are made to cook and so on, so that they know indigenous foods and every other thing. Now, what are the developments so far? Along the line, we are trying to interface with NYSC to help us in the area of language graduates, because we have the problem of manpower. We source our resource persons from outside, so we believe that if NYSC will be posting those who read Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and other languages, it will help us. Well, like I mentioned, we have introduced the Weekend Indigenous Language Program. Just recently, the wife of the ambassador, the High Commissioner to Nigeria on Trinidad and Tobago, the wife was one of the participants of this program. We had many, from the diplomatic corps that were really involved in the program. I'll be rounding up shortly. Then we are working on what we call Quiz Wazobia. This is an indigenous language quiz where respondents, everything will be in the indigenous languages. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the idea of Wazobia is for children to learn these major languages. So we want a situation whereby anybody participating in this very quiz program will speak the three major languages appreciably in addition to his or her own indigenous language, because questions will be asked in that very dimension. Then we organize workshops, like I mentioned, language in the barracks. Then our NICO cultural clubs in schools, those are the ones that we use to organize cultural programs. The next one is going to be in October. Then one other thing we have done is to make the study of one Nigerian language compulsory in NICO training school. All our participants, if you are Yoruba, then you take any other language apart from Yoruba. If you are from Benin, then we expect that you learn some other indigenous language. Then on our web page, we encourage the indigenous sayings through proverbs and aphorisms. Every day we will see a new proverb which is coined from our cultural context. We've interpreted them and we use them. If you look at the lower strip of NICO News, every page you will see a Nigerian proverb and aphorism on every page. And we've realized that, we have had somebody from the UK who sent us an email that she had been, compiling all the proverbs and aphorisms that she had come across from our webpage and from our newsletters. That is to generate interest. Now, what are the major challenges? We have loose educational policies. The school system is not helping us. Our problem of lack of funds, study centers, paucity of books, audio-visual aids. That's why I was really excited when we got to meet Mrs. Guzon. We believe that she has answers to some of these challenges. And the coverage too, because for now, the visual aids on our websites, there's nothing on the Indigenous Language Program on our website. But we think that that would be a major plank that could be adopted. And of course, problem of lack of interest. Now, in conclusion, we are saying that there's need to make indigenous languages functional and relevant to the users by governments. If not, all efforts at reviving their use, the society will amount to nothing. The NIGO programs, as they relate to the indigenous language, various indigenous languages, to generate interest. And once the interest is not there, once parents are not ready to support our endeavors, there's nothing we can do. And I believe that the GUOSA initiative is one that needs to be encouraged, and I believe with concerted effort from every angle, it has some prospects, and I believe it will help in a propagation of the learning of indigenous languages. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Batwes. And excuse me. Let me point out a few things that I have noted here while you were speaking. One of the things is that we all, as individuals, actually have to love ourselves first before we think about extending our hands to others. We have to learn our own language, and by learning our own language within, as they say, charity begins at home, then we learn other people's languages within our Nigerian language community. At least one, give yourself a challenge, at least one language that doesn't belong to you. And that's the policy that Nigerian government tried to implement, which they have not fully implemented in the schools. That way the students will have their own language that they learn at home or also in school, plus extra language that is not theirs. Now, the three major languages in Nigeria are Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. However, there are at least 500 other languages that are endangered, that are almost phasing out. And even the major languages are also phasing out, let alone the smaller ones. So we have to challenge ourselves to learn more of our languages. After we learn our languages, then we can think about that of others. There is something interesting that happened the other day. I called my cousin in Aba, and after speaking with her, I wanted to speak with the daughter. And the daughter, I started speaking with the daughter in Igbo. The daughter told me she does not understand Igbo. My cousin did not even finish school, sir. And I was surprised that her daughter that lives in Aba, in Igbo land, does not speak Igbo language. So I asked her what happened. She said she didn't know. Okay, how come she's speaking all this English? No language of hers. So that's a shame. We cannot let that happen. We are even pushing ourselves here with our kids that live here to speak Igbo language or their own language, Yoruba, Hausa, Izon, or any language, Urobo, that they speak at home. Parents, we have to be more involved because parental involvement has a lot to do in support of what NICO is doing. And by the way, the website for NICO is www.nico.gov.ng. Please look into that. You'll see a lot of the programs that they have been doing, cultural camps, workshops, weekend language training, language in the barracks, and they are doing a lot more. Another thing we have to have in mind is that we need to have unity within diversity. We are not telling anybody to wipe out their own language. We need your language, and you take care of your language and take care of Nigerian language, then take care of the foreign languages that you speak. You can at least speak 10 languages. None of them will counteract the other. Okay, so let's move on. And in moving on, we are actually going to have one aspect that we really skipped a little bit. I would definitely like the chief host, Mr. Alex Ibaneweka, to talk to us a little bit more about GUOSA language, give us the insights a little bit more, and if you can wrap it around some of what the keynote speaker has just mentioned before we have this quick interview. Thank you very much.
Can I just, if you don't mind, can I make a comment?
I was kind of wondering if it will be possible for us to make some comments or
some questions as regards the keynote speaker's presentation, because I know it sparked a lot of things in my mind. So I was thinking if we could have like a little, not a complete discussion, well, it's maybe a bit of discussion, but at least a kind of interact on that in terms of some of the things that he said. I mean, what do you think? Okay, all right. So could I just start, if you don't mind? One of the things that that came to my mind in terms of our own language, and I think Molly did say something about it, is how we're going to make our children to speak our language. I know there are a lot of programs that NICO is formulating, that they are implementing there with our kids in schools, in the community, and so on. But just as you said, charity begins at home. And if our children cannot learn the language at home, it's going to be very difficult for them when they go to school or they are in the community to learn all indigenous language and so on. But they have to start at home. So I was kind of wondering, what do we need to do in terms of encouraging our parents, mom and dad, for them to speak their language at home? Sometimes at home they are speaking English language, and just as you said, some of the languages are going to get extinct very soon. When I call my family members back in Warri and all that, and I'm talking to them in speech that they are speaking. Instead of to speak, the language, their own language, they don't even know how to speak the language anymore. So, I mean, what can we do, to encourage our children back home, our parents? Maybe there can be a conference where we have to talk to the parents that people need to teach our children, people need to speak your language at home. And even here in the United States, the same thing. I know it's a challenge for us too, but some parents are trying to do that. But basically, what can we do to encourage our children to speak their language and the parents to speak the language to them at home? So that by the time when they go to school, they are going to be open to other indigenous language. But let me just go with that first. Maybe we'll talk a bit about it. I still have another question I'm going to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think how we are going to do it is we are, Father Ray just asked a question, and we will have people chip into that question and have a discussion, and we'll now come back to the presenter to help us understand it better. And by the way, I tried my best. I started, my kids learned Igbo as their first language in the US here. In fact, when we traveled to Nigeria in '95, my mom is illiterate. So she was actually surprised and kind of disappointed, because she said, oh, I was just polishing my English. I didn't even know that the kids speak Igbo. So how did I do it? Every day speak to them in that language, whether they understand it or not. Eventually they will just pick it up. In fact, a lot of our Nigerian children here are really struggling better than the parents, and even better than those in Nigeria. How are they doing it? They find out that they don't have the extra language, the vernacular, the mother tongue, second language that some other students have. When they go to universities, they insist on pushing for their own language. The Igbo language in Yale was pushed in by students of Igbo descent, requesting that they learn Igbo language there, since other people learn their own language in the same school. And there is a policy, they also took advantage of the policy there. The policy is that if you are able to get a teacher for a class and get up to 6 students that are interested in that class must hold. And they are using it at Harvard, they are using it at Yale, they are teaching Yoruba there, they are teaching Igbo there as far as I know. And UCLA has Igbo and also Yoruba. So a lot of them are doing that, and the kids, please, or parents, please inform your kids, or the kids, please push for that. We need your help wherever you are. Thank you. So let's move on. How do we try to encourage our kids, our children, our parents, everybody that is Nigerian to help to grow our indigenous languages in Nigeria?
Thank you, Reverend. That's a beautiful question. I think the first question you raised falls on what I'm going to discuss during my paper presentation. So, in answer to your question of how to encourage our youth, our children to speak our indigenous language, this is a very big question and diversified question. But however, I think the fundamental thing to do is for the policy makers to be able to put this language across awareness. That is very important, because if you don't speak a language, no language will speak you. If you want to speak a language, no matter if you have the interest, no matter how difficult it is, people will learn it. People learn Chinese, Nigerians learn Chinese language in Nigeria. Nigerians learn French in Nigeria. They never even travel across the francophone countries. They learn German in Nigeria because somebody somewhere made it an important thing in their life, or in their studies, in their curriculum, or whatever. The same thing, if policymakers put it across for people, people will learn it. And how did I started after all? Those days in 1950s when I was growing up, like I say, it's part of what I'm going to touch basis on. This book, there was this 9 Nigerian language news translation in the Nigerian Television Authority of those days. After the English news, they would go about translating it in 9 Nigerian languages: Hausa, Igbo, Robo, Kanuri, Fufude, Kolokuma, Izon, and so much. So, as young as I was that time, my brain was a hall of languages, so to say. I can read news in the job. I don't speak anything. I will just read everything they say, even though I don't know the meaning. But as I grew up, I start to, when I see an Nigerian person, I say, what do you call this? Then they will ask me, are you an Nigerian person? I say, no. Then before you know it, I put another language in the job. So when I see an Igbo person, I put another, all those words were just in my brain. That's because they made it known to me. And children, their brain is open when they are young to languages. So at that time, I didn't know the meaning, but I knew every vocabulary of about 9 different languages or more. And as I grew up, I moved up across the country through my uncle. Oh my God, that was another scenario entirely. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to touch bases on that. But however, in answer to your question, the policy decision makers and the policy makers should put this language to the children. And then the parents have to take the lead. Do you understand me? The first person that speaks a language to you is your mom or your dad. Primarily mom, because mom are more closer to the children than their fathers. Because the father goes about day and night, but they are with their mom. So if the mom, I think we should focus on the women, our mothers, make it a point of duty to speak our languages to our children, particularly at the prime of youth, from infancy to youth. And once you grow with it, you grow with it forever. But if the mom doesn't speak it, we leave it for whatever, then that's how we get all this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Let me say something about the mom being the person that would drive the teaching of the indigenous language. I'll give you an example. We have a friend here whose wife is white here in the United States, but he is Igbo. All the kids speak Igbo. Okay. Now the mother of the kids now speak Igbo. And those kids speak Igbo in their own dialect. Okay. How did that happen? Through the man that was pushing it. And in most of the Nigerian ethnic communities, the man is usually the head of the household. If the man is able to drive the use of that language in that household, it will hold. And the woman will bless it. The woman will keep pushing for it to happen. And by the way, talking about the policy, there are a lot of things that Nigeria has done in terms of policy, but the implementation is always the case. I was looking at the Nigerian currency for the first time 2 weeks ago. I found out that actually the money has the denominations written in 3 languages: Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, written there. I didn't even know. And look at this NICO. Where is it coming from? Policy from Nigeria, the Nigerian government. I did not even know that there is anything that, like NICO that is in existence. I did not even know that there is something that they have that is called like a summer camp. We could have been sending our kids for exchange programs. Yeah. They have competitions. Government is doing something. But you also said something which is more awareness. Is it open to everybody? Are they broadcasting it all over the same way they broadcast their campaign jingles? Or maybe not. So if we don't have any other person trying to say anything, I'm going to hand the mic to Okay.
Thank you very much. I think the key issue, like Alex said, is sensitization. We need to really educate Nigerians on the importance of the indigenous language. You see, because of the colonial hangover, many came to believe that our indigenous languages are inferior to the foreign languages. Because of that, many parents are not encouraging their children to learn these languages. So through sensitization, through public enlightenment campaigns, for them to understand the importance of, especially the mother tongue in education, I think if we do that, it will go a long way in changing the mindsets concerning indigenous languages. Thank you.
Well, let me say something. I believe the way we can foster our indigenous languages is for the parents to teach the children at home. I have Chinese friends, Afghanistan friends. They teach their kids at home. Once they come from home, from school, that English stops at the door. They speak their indigenous languages at home. And these children have grown up to speak their language. They communicate in their language. They were born in America. If you go to that family, all they speak is their language. Now, when they get out of home and go to school, they speak English in school. But when they get in the door, they speak their language. That way they foster their indigenous language, even here in America. So if government can put in some effort to sensitize the families that they should teach their children, because look at my sister. All our kids were born in Benin. They were born at the University of Benin. They don't speak Benin. If you speak Benin to them, they reply you in English. They don't understand Benin. And they were born in Benin, raised in Benin. That to me is a big shame. So we should do our efforts to sensitize the parents, to teach their kids at home, and educate them so they can speak their indigenous languages. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Incidentally, we we have highlighted the issues involved. What Father Ray mentioned. Now, it's true that the problem, how to go about it, he has mentioned the aspect of the family. The family is the primary contact of the child. The child grows up, relates with the parents, brothers, sisters, aunties. So in the house, it is very, very paramount. It's imperative that parents use indigenous languages. One thing from my own experience, my children, the older ones speak the indigenous language, but the younger ones are yet to catch up. But one thing I've noticed, once you say something and they understand, they take pride that they understood what daddy said. If I say go and bring that, normally you have to do it both ways. Say it in the indigenous language, then interpret it if the child is not understanding. Gradually, the child will pick up. And of course, along the line, they will also ask questions. If they don't say, what is this in the job? Tell me this in the job. And gradually, they will pick up. Now, the school system, like we all agreed, the school system has not helped matters. Because for me, I learned the alphabets in Izon before English. We started with R, B, D, like that. Before English, but that is not the case now. So people go to, children go to school, it's English. They come to the house, it's English. Among them, their peers, it's English. The indigenous languages will definitely suffer. But if from the family, the imperative of learning indigenous languages is inculcated in the children, and they go to the school or their schools and they are not penalized for speaking the indigenous languages that you are speaking vernacular. If that is not the case, I think children, as they catch up, they will definitely be learning and speaking these indigenous languages. Finally, I mentioned one of our challenges is lack of interest. Many of us do not take pride in what is Nigeria. One thing I didn't mention is that in NICO, for example, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday is Dress Nigeria. That's in all our offices around the country. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, you dress Nigeria. You are dressed. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if you want to strangle yourself with a tie, go ahead, but just look good. That is a tradition. And at the beginning, staff resisted it. But it's a matter of enforcement. Yes, that I should give them dressing allowance before. And I asked them, the t-shirts and ties, who gave you the allowance to go and buy them? This, as an Institute for Cultural Orientation, we have to reorientate ourselves. We have to, show the way for people to follow. And we have also, got a memo through the National Council on Culture and Tourism for federal government to declare at least 2 days as Dress Nigeria days. We want a situation whereby during ESCO, President will not be putting on tie. Well, he hardly wears tie anyway. But some of the ministers are wearing ties and so on. But we want that to stop. Because it is when we patronize Nigerian dresses that our textile industries can come back to life. That is what Michael is championing. So in summary, we all have to be committed in the family, in the school, even in churches. One thing I realized in my going around the country, the emir in his palace, it might be a professor, but if you visit an emir in his, like Sanusi now, if I go and pay courtesy call on Sanusi, Sanusi will not speak English with me. Somebody will interpret, he will speak in Hausa, somebody will interpret to me. If he doesn't interpret very well, he will even correct him. That is the way they take the indigenous language. Yes, seriously. So I think by the time we do that, of course, the GUOSA project will easily fly. But if there is disinterest in our children, in family like the Igbo lady I cited here, insulting Zebediah for speaking Igbo to her son, if we have that, we display that kind of attitude all over the places, there is no way, we can revive the learning of our indigenous languages. So it's a collective responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barclays, and the Secretary of NICO, Executive Secretary, Director General of NICO in Nigeria. Now, we are going to get into the next phase, and there is something also that and everything that the general, that Dr. Barclays says here, I have to just claim that it was NICO that said it. Yeah. Now, if NICO is telling us that they are doing all these things that they are doing, including Dress Nigeria and all that, I'm actually trying to challenge NICO to work with the Ministry of Education to see whether they can translate some of the cultural development and cultural integration aspects of NICO into the school system. In as much as among the WAEC countries, Nigeria is one of those that requires at least one indigenous language. But then they do not hold the indigenous language at the same level as English and mathematics. So in WAEC, mathematics, English comes first, mathematics comes second, then whatever language. That's how the parameter they use to judge the passing level for mathematics. By the way, shamefully, the WAEC came out and it's only 31.6% of Nigerian students that passed WAEC this year. So one of the things that they should be doing also is to hold the Nigerian language at the same level as they hold English and also hold mathematics. That's another one. Then another situation is the Dress Nigeria. We have uniforms in Nigeria. Most of the uniforms are Western. Can the students have Dress Nigeria there each week, at least once, so that they will start from the cradle to know that this is our way of dressing, this is our culture, and we can work on that. So that's a challenge, and you collaborate with the Ministry of Education to see what you can do about that. Now, while we are waiting for Alex, I would also like us to think about some of it. Now, when we are talking about culture, not only the language, we know that a lot of the things that the kids do these days are the things that they learn from school or at home, and we all grow up to be adults, or we have grown up to be adults. Where is our handwork that we used to do in the village. Making baskets, making brooms. Now they don't do handwork anymore.
They monetized it.
They monetize it, and that's killing us. That is how why we are so monetized that we're stealing money and we're so corrupt. We have to teach the kids how to do some things with their hands again, so that they can also learn how to put this together in school and also use it. We can't even make our beads anymore. We used to make it in school. They can't make it. They import it from China. Can our students learn how to do handwork again by making beads, by doing things that are indigenous to us? That's part of the NICO challenge. And that also comes with collaboration with the Ministry of Education for the schools. Oh, thank you, my sister. I have a sister here that came in, and please, sister, you have to introduce yourself fully. Tell me where you come from, why you are here, what you have picked up, and before you help us go through this discussion. Thank you.
My name is Angela. I'm here to support the GUOSA language. This moment, she said something that really took my attention, that our kids no longer speak or even do the traditional beats, all those things we used to. I remember when I went to Germany, and I was singing this song we sang in school, Monini, Monini, you know, and I know I was in the cultural group, and there was this Igbo dance. I was telling my friend in Germany that this thing no longer exists, that there's no cultural group in Nigeria anymore. There's no art and culture. Those days, I remember how we used to go to school with clay, and then you have to carve out something and draw something, paint African, but those things no longer exist anymore. So our school now is all about English, and dressing. Look good, just go to school, look good, and then the women want to look sexy, you know. I think we are losing out, really, we are losing out. I live here, and I have made up my mind that my children, their first name is going to be my traditional, my language, Edo, which is Edo. Make sure they understand Edo first before, like somebody said, when you're coming in, English stays with you outside. Yeah. Once you come in, Edo language continue. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Angela is my daughter. She just got married last weekend.
Yeah.
So, a gentleman named Mr. Basaki. So, she should have been. I went to look for her in the moon. I couldn't find her, but they said she has to come here first before going to the moon. Thank you all very much. So, what's the next?
The part.
Sure.
I think this part was here, right? Your presentation.
No, we have a gentleman who couldn't make it here. And that is Dr. Amos. I'm sorry, the last name is mouthful. I don't want to chew my tongue, but I want to try. This Legislature. He is the head of the Department of Linguistics, University of Abuja. This man contributed a lot to the success of this conference, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it due to last-minute visa approval. He got his visa to travel for this conference only last week, and by the time he got to the airliner, they said it cost him $8,000. So based on that, we don't have that money. We have $8,000 to go into GUOSA language trainers program. So he made his speech and humbly requested that somebody should read it on his behalf. And I'm glad to inform you, we have a able person here named Mr. Alex Omichie, who is the Director of Cultural Orientation at NICO, and he has voluntarily accepted to help us with that task. On this occasion,
I hand over the mic to Mr. Alex Comige. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present the paper written by Dr. Amos Bunaya, of the University of Abuja, Nigeria. Since we have some time, I will read the paper. I thought I could speak to it if we got time constraints, but now I know we have some time, so that I don't lose out some of the salient points he has raised in this paper. I'll read. The title of the paper is Effective National Language Policy in Nigerian Perspective. It started by what language policy is all about. And it says, language policy is defined as government's deliberate and conscious efforts to officially determine the coexistence of languages in a nation and to assign functions to these languages. The essence or the ultimate goal is to develop and promote national languages so as to such a degree that one of them can eventually be chosen as a lingua franca. The Nigerian government used legislative machinery such as decree, fiat, and other executive methods to assign and regulate roles to the existing autonomous languages. According to Unite 2010, language policy is about expression. It's about statements, declarations, provisions, decisions, and laws made by government. These are then documented by the guiding policy directions on the national languages in the country. He gave us historical perspective to language policy in Nigeria. So for a thorough discussion of the topic, effective national language policy, it is important that the history of national language policy in Nigeria is used as a take-off plank. The history of national language policy engineering in Nigeria dates back to 1961, when a motion for the teaching of Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba in Nigerian institutions was moved in the Federal House of Representatives. The motion was passed, though there was no formal national language policy document to back up the motion. Several attempts to formulate a national language policy were made by the Nigerian government in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 1963. It was not until 1977 when the national policy documents saw the light of day in what is called the 1977 National Policy on Education. It was reversed in 1988, 1999, and 2014. The language provisions of the national policy stipulates as follows. 1. The use of mother tongue or language of immediate community. Number 2, the teaching of indigenous languages as L1 as core subjects in the primary school, secondary schools, and senior secondary school levels. 3, the teaching of English language as core subject at the primary GSS and SSS levels. Number 4, the learning of one of the 3 major indigenous languages, Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba, by non-native speakers as a second language at the junior secondary school level. Finally, the teaching of Arabic and French as elective subjects. According to him, this is a multilingual education policy being implemented in Nigeria. The goal is the promotion of national unity and integration. The teaching and learning of Arabic and French is to promote and encourage international competitiveness, integration, trade, and cooperation, academic research, and global citizenship. Planning, especially in the face of linguistic globalization, which poses a serious threat to Nigerian languages. Unfortunately, the implementation of the language policy is not pursued with any serious commitment. This is a disturbing plan. The current state of indigenous languages in Nigeria is therefore very worrisome, as many of the minor languages do not have well-developed orthographies. And Nigeria still uses a foreign language as a lingua franca. Nigerian linguistic situation has been variously described and classified as follows. We have 4 large languages: Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, and of course Pidgin. I think he said 7 here, but there are 9 large languages, 20 medium-sized languages, and about 350 medium-sized languages. He tried to look at the current state of Nigeria facing intractable problems. Linguists and language educators have undertaken field studies and have organized workshops and conferences on various aspects of Nigerian languages, but the outcome of these exercises have remained on the drawing table of government. He continued by saying the National Institute for Nigerian Languages was ceded to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, by the same federal government that established it as a Nigerian language center. This is counterproductive or retrograde language planning exercise. In fact, it is an understatement to say that Nigeria has a national language policy. What we have is a collection of disjointed statements from various decrees, military fiats, constitution, and government publications. Some of the provisions of this amorphous de facto language policies, such as the language of the immediate community and the deliberate cultivation and propagation of English, or call it the empowerment of English, are sources of endangerment to Nigerian languages. Multilingual language policy is expensive and ideologically problematic. In such a linguistically diverse situation, national integration and national unity may be a wild goose chase. These are some of the reasons for the ambivalence in language planning. Nigerian leaders are afraid of political crisis. The Nigerian languages which the primary and secondary school students are enjoined to learn, as stated in the language policy, have no good teachers and teaching materials. The policy itself is not backed up by legislation. Students are required to take up one of the Nigerian languages, but there's no compulsion to pass it. There's no sanction attached to non-compliance. This is language planning without enforcement. Researches in Nigerian languages are being sponsored by international linguistic organizations, but some of their activities have been proscribed by the federal government. Research work on language endangerment is not fully sponsored by Nigerian government. Speakers of the major languages are willing to do research on the minority languages for fear of being dubbed speakers or specialists going against the stream, that is unpatriotic. Speakers of the minority language also want to associate themselves with the big languages for socio-economic and political gains. They thus encourage linguistic suicide or linguicidal crime against their own local languages. The federal government of Nigeria, through her language policy and counter policy, has frustrated the efforts of linguists and language educators. For instance, the Nigerian Institute for Languages, ABA, which was established in 1992 through Nigerian linguists, developed Nigerian languages and produced teachers and teaching materials almost keyed by an obnoxious federal government fiat. Federal Ministry of Education also carried out workshops on Nigerian languages without involving Nigerian linguists. Research work on language endangerment is not fully sponsored by the Nigerian government. He continued by telling us, listing 6 different categories of language policies. There's the policy of assimilation, which tries to introduce measures and strategies that will introduce the minority language groups in order to allow for the growth and development of the dominant language. There's the bilingual multilingual policy. This policy promotes 3 or 4 languages which may be regarded as regional languages or possible co-official languages. He cited this as what we have in Nigeria and Ghana. There's also the policy called differentiated legal status policy. The coexistence of multiple language groups is recognized. Both the legal rights of both of the minority and majority languages are recognized and the minorities are given special protection. There's a non-intervention policy, there's a sectoral policy, there's a valorization policy. Which language policy is best suited for Nigeria? That question is answered in this paper. And it says these policies have been labeled by critics of language policies. Some of these policies tend towards linguistic imperialism, separatism, protectionism, and prescriptivism. Which one of these categories can guarantee effective national language policy in a nation? He said the bilingual stroke monolingual category seems to be suitable for Nigeria. The myriad of challenges facing the formulation and implementation of the national language policy in Nigeria made critics to assert that there is no clear-cut language policy. What we have in Nigeria are language policy statements or provisions and declarations scattered all over some government documents. Equally worrisome is the fact that there is no clear language planning that can provide the direction for the implementation of any language policy. Nigerian languages are becoming endangered species, especially with the inroad of globalization. It says an ominous cloud hangs over Nigerian languages, and if something fast is not done, the consequences will be disastrous. Many of the indigenous languages will become extinct. Effective national language policy with more and serious futuristic planning is the only panacea. Effective national language policy involves a proactive, holistic, and deliberate corpus and status language planning by the national government. This means that the formulation of an effective national policy should involve language experts, linguists, language educators, and technocrats, together with political stakeholders, including teachers and community opinion leaders. This, according to him, is imperative. He has taken time to give us a long list of recommendations on the way forward. I will read some of them. So the provisions concerning the use of Nigerian languages in the legislature is backed up by well-stated objectives under Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He advocates for the removal of the escape clauses in Section 55 and 97 of the Constitution without delay. He also advocates for equal opportunity for both the major and minor languages in terms of protection, cultivation, propagation, development, and standardization of the languages. He is also of the view that the provision of well-stated penalties for non-compliance in the implementation of the language policy be put in place. Also, the establishment of monitoring and evaluation agencies as a matter of urgency. The Nigerian languages are adequately used in the legislature, judiciary, educational institutions, and the media. He also feels that the teaching and learning of Nigerian languages at all levels is made compulsory, and that the use of Nigerian languages in the writing of books and primers for students should be encouraged, and that the certificate of naturalization can only be given to persons who have acquired knowledge of at least one of Nigeria's indigenous languages, and that all Nigerian children should be given the opportunity to learn and speak their native languages, that is their mother tongue, be given equal status. That the states and the national and state houses of assembly should set aside a day for ethnic interaction, where ethnic nationalities can discuss with their representatives in their local languages. That only persons who can speak at least one Nigerian language and has passed examinations in any local language should be given naturalization certificates. He also feels that the local government councils should promote indigenous languages of their areas by ensuring that they are taught from primary to secondary school levels. In concluding his paper, he says that effective national language policy is only possible if the language agencies, such as the Nigerian Institute for Nigerian Languages, NERODC, that is Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, departments of Nigerian languages in all our universities and colleges of education, and the language units of the federal and state ministries of education are well funded. Maybe I should add, and NICO are well funded to enable them carry out their mandates. Effective language planning leads to effective national language policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. So that was really a fully packed presentation, and it touches a lot of things. So, going in line with Father Ray's recommendation, I think we should have time to discuss the content a little bit. I really like what he said about just concurring with something we've been saying, that most of what we are thinking that is national language policy has been some disjointed declarations or statements from here and there, and they have not been fully put together in such a way that they will be implementable. We also touched something else that I was also going to mention earlier. Now, in the high-tech industry, we talk about localization, and we talk about internationalization. Now, when Nigeria was thinking about the language policy and all that, I don't think they also factored in all of those. The multilingual part, it goes towards what they will call internationalization or globalization. So I think that's where we missed the road earlier, because the earlier educators were looking at globalization or internationalization. That's why they were actually pushing for us to learn how to speak English so that we can communicate with others. And when you speak Igbo, which your local language, they will say you're speaking vernacular. And they're assuming that you already know that you have it packed, then you should spend more time in the other ones. However, we missed that road and now focus on others and get our own. So I think we should come back and realize that both of them are important. And as we have always been saying, we start with our own, having it down packed already, getting it ready before we all start to look for others to acquire. So, discussions. Somebody to talk about or ask questions that we can discuss since the author is not here.
I don't really have, I like some of what you said, but unfortunately the author is not here. So what I can, let me just say that I'm going to pass my questions directly to him. Since,
ask us too.
the gray area I was looking at when he was saying that integration of national language is not quite feasible. I don't seem to agree with that area, because there's nothing impossible if there is determination. So that is why we have unity in diversity. And that is what the GUOSA language is all about, unity in diversity. There are ways to do things and you get it done and possible. But when you think or you believe it's not possible, remembering that the end of your own knowledge might well just be the beginning or the starting point of Madame Rosa. In other words, where all my knowledge ends might be the very starting point of your knowledge. So what you know, what a doctor knows, what is not what I know. But however, collection of every knowledge, every bit from you, from me, makes it possible. So that's the only area I have in it. Otherwise, he had a very packaged presentation, like he says. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, he did say something about promotion of indigenous language in our educational system. For one thing, back home in Nigeria, in my own state, we have a Delta State University, and the indigenous language is being promoted in that university. Urhobo language has been made a department. In fact, it's a department, so that the students, they can study Urhobo language. They get credit for it. They get diploma, certificate on it, and then they go out there and start teaching in the elementary schools and in high school and colleges. So it is just great that in my state, we've got a department that is promoting the indigenous language. And then those of us who are here in the United States, we have a Urhobo National Association. I was once the chairman of the board of trustees. This is on the national level. And we have chapters all over, in the United States. In fact, we're going to be having a national convention coming up in Atlanta, Labor Day weekend. That's what I was talking about. So folks who are coming from Nigeria with this airline, transferring people's flying to the, out of the country. But we are going to have this convention, and during the convention, we have a promotion of Urhobo language. And our children who are born here in the United States, we encourage their parents, the different chapters, to teach them, Urhobo language. And there are certain things we're going to be asking them, to be body part, naming of things and all that. They're going to be quiz. And then you'll be given an award for being able to, for being able to pass this quiz, in Urhobo language. So our children are very keen about this. And this time we decided to take it to the next level, not just for our children, but the adults too, to participate in the quiz, and also that they're going to be getting an award. So it's great that we are making some efforts to promote our own indigenous language. But at the same time, just as Alex mentioned, we can also include other language. We have to balance it. I'm kind of wondering, okay, when are we going to see how we can do something about the GUOSA language? And that's why we are here today. Okay? Now, while we are promoting our own indigenous language, it is not also possible to open up, to the GUOSA language and bring it, into on the national level, in terms of making it government policy, and then being able to promote it in school. But if we say we're going to wait until we eventually, get rooted in our own indigenous language, it's going to take forever before that can come in. So I'm just trying to put it out there. What can we do on the national level, on the government level, how to integrate, GUOSA into one of the national, though we are not calling it indigenous language, but it's going to be like lingua franca. But what can we do to make that, to happen?
Thank you, Reverend Reverend. Nothing is impossible. In the American dictionary, impossibility is just figuratively. Americans believe anything, and they do anything. It can be possible. But however, not to cut a long story, I think by the time I finish my question, we now put your table and your question on the floor.
We can talk about it.
Yeah. So, with due respect, we have the controller of State of Affairs. So let me give her the mic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I agree with you that we are still going to get to your presentation, but you know, the whole, I agree with your Father Ray too. The whole thing that we are doing today is also revolving around GUOSA language. And any opportunity we have to talk about it, to discuss it, we'll grab that and still use it while we are still answering all those questions. And by the way, Father Ray, my understanding of GUOSA language is that it has its roots in different Nigerian languages. And that is why it's good for us to still have that taproot in any Nigerian language that you can hold on to, and then link it up to GUOSA language. It's almost like when if you have learned Spanish before and you know English, then you know Italian or French. Yeah, it's easy to learn the other ones. So GUOSA language is necessary. We need it. We need to hear more from you. I keep itching from the beginning for you to tell us more about it so that we can have more lively discussion. If we can actually change the schedule a little bit for you you can start and continue later. How about that? Do we all agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
let's not postpone the discussion on the GUOSA language.
okay, so I should hold on to the presentation.
I think we should do the presentation, but if we all agree also, let's take a quick break. You can tell me how many minutes we need to take before we now come back. Immediately you can, it's around 12, around 12:21.
No, it's 12:21. What time do we have? I think the lunch is here.
Okay, so maybe we should have lunch.
Let's finish.
Okay, let's have a quick break. Maybe 10 minutes break for people to refresh themselves and come back. Then
we'll come back for the presentation?
Yes.
I think I will visit Nico.
We'll come to Abuja. We'll see you.
After the evening.
I think it's good to take a break and jump into your project, because that's the major thing left now. Yeah, because the other ones are not.
We go to the meeting and what to do and all.
Because some of the things we're discussing is also part of the
Part of it.
This is a
Yeah.
No, I've never seen you before.
I live in Jos and I lived in Lagos. The part of my life in Lagos, and I spent 8 years in University of Jos.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to read in that language. But nowadays it's not so.
That's not the case now.
It's not so.
That's not the case.
Or what? No.
GUOSA-Language International Conference, Bayview Room, California State University, Hayward, California. Paper presentation titled Swahili for the East, GUOSA for the West, by me, Alex G. Iguneweka. About myself. I was born, raised, and educated in Nigeria until 1996, when I moved to the United States of America for further studies and linguistic research. Since my arrival into the United States, I studied and obtained the following qualifications: instructional strategies for the adults and the adolescents at the UC Berkeley,
certificate in pharmacology for healthcare professionals at Contra Costa College, San Pablo, California. Then I moved on to have my bachelor's degree in business administration, majoring in health management at the American Heritage University, San Bernardino. I'm the founder, president of GUOSA Educational, Scientific and Cultural Institute based in the United States, and now incorporated in Abuja under the Corporate Registry Commission or something like that, called GUOSA Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Nigeria. Books written and published: one, Teach Yourself GUOSA Language, Book 1. I have it here. This one, and this is the beginning, the scratcher of the whole writing series of about the GUOSA language. And the second one was the Dictionary of GUOSA Language, which I wrote in 1987. And this book is here. And this book was launched at the National Theatre by the former Honorable Minister of Culture, that's Prince Tony Momo. And then the third one was the Complete Dictionary of GUOSA. I think there was one before then. This is another one. This is titled Teach Yourself, or the third, Teach Yourself GUOSA Language, Book 2. And then the complete Dictionary of GUOSA Language, which is the fourth book on the same subject. From a tender age, I recognized the imperativeness for an indigenous national language for my country, Nigeria, because in those years, or in those days, 1950s, it was the practice of the SY Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, NBC, to read the national network news in the English language or the language of the colonial masters, and then translate it into about 9 Nigerian languages on hourly basis. Those languages are Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Edo, Kanuri, Izan, Efik, Nupe, and Tiv, respectively. To me, this was not only boring, it was high waste of manpower, time, and material resources, because the vernacular network news bed, as they called it, translation took the better part of the daily radio program, coupled with the fact that there was no other radio or television service in Nigeria as at that time to entertain the youth and adults throughout the country, except the rediffusion, local house-to-house wiring technology. Necessity, they said, is the mother of invention. Thus, I began the lifelong pursuit of my vision by the evolution of what we now know as the GUOSA language. Nigeria in history. In 1914, the northern and the southern protectorates of the colony and administrative boundaries set up by the British colonialists were removed, and the colonies merged by Sir Fred Lord Lugard, who was the first Governor General of the Federation of Nigeria. Sir Lugard was on a mission of the British Empire at the era when the Western powers rushed into the African continent to grab, conquer, divide and rule the motherlands from north to south, east to west regional countries. Lugard's amalgamation became the first political turning point and a milestone development. It brought about the birth through the merger of a unit geographical entities and nation now known and called Nigeria. Therefore, Nigeria did not evolve through any monolinguistic and cultural ethnographic origins. The name Nigeria was invented by Lady Lord Lugard from two sets of words, Niger areas, or the geographical stretch of lands surrounding the present-day River Niger that started from the Futajalon Highlands in northwest Africa and terminated in the Atlantic Ocean in the southern part of Nigeria, West Africa. As if that was it all, the name of Nigerian national currency, the Naira and the Kobo, respectively, were equally invented or evolved from two sources, the River Niger area for the Naira currency notes and the Kobo from the Portuguese copper mints that were traded into Nigeria about the 1400 AD. The GUOSA language evolution, metamorphosis, and aims and objectives. The need for a common indigenous lingua franca in the West Africa regional countries or the ECOWAS is well overdue. Lack of this vehicle of unity and identity did not only destabilize and destroy the socio-political and industrial strategies of the West African countries, it raised data or questions which borders on the basis for cohesion, comprehension, industrial and technological revolution, and the and the unity in such diversity, because language plays a unifying role in the beginning, development, beliefs, and customs of any group of people. Experts have pointed out that most people think and act better in the language of their motherlands and identifiable language to their roots, and that when they speak other languages of no identical connection to their cultures, they engage in transliteration and endless hurdles before the main issues to be discussed. Language is a means by which words or expressions find meanings and is put into use. Basically, it is used as a means of giving out information, thoughts, skills, ideas, reasoning, and ensure receipt of it from various sources. Above all, language is knowledge, and knowledge is power for the people, from the people, and by the people. The GUOSA language. There are about 400 different ethnic languages. So let me quickly add, this was 1964-65 census, according to the National Language Center. There are about 400 different languages, dialects, and fractional tongues in Nigeria, and about twice this number in other West African countries. The development of an authentic indigenous national language for Nigerians of every geographic, ethno-linguistic, and socio-economic groups became imperative ever since Nigeria got her political independence from Britain in 1960. The adoption of the defunct Wazobia, Hausa, Igbo, or the Yoruba languages as a tripod lingua franca in addition to the English language will, in the long run, not be acceptable to the tens of millions of Nigerians who do not speak any of those three major languages. The very low standard of spoken and written English language by present day's college and universities graduates, coupled with limited progress of the English language in Nigeria, shows that the English language is not a workable solution to the problem of finding an authentic national language, because the failure of the English as an indigenous lingua franca is mainly due to the fact that it is foreign and non-indigenous language which has been imposed on us. Sorry about that. So like I said, the failure of the English as an indigenous lingua franca is mainly due to the fact that it is foreign and non-indigenous language which has been imposed on Nigerians by the colonial powers. It bears very little or no resemblance to the rich linguistic and cultural realities of the Nigerian societies. Therefore, if our quest for a lingua franca is to be successful, we must match our courage, determination, creativity, evolution, and enthusiasm with the fabric of the GUOSA language, ideology, linguistic science, and assessment of our past, present, and future unity as a truly independent nation. According to Professor Nicholas Faraklas, a former linguistic researcher and instructor at the UC Berkeley, California, developing research, documentation, and training the trainers of the GUOSA language is by no means impossible, as some linguists may have argued in theory, instead of a strong determination to succeed. Professor Faraklas went on to say that countries with even more languages than Nigeria, such as Papua New Guinea, have successfully developed national language for all of their citizens. The key to the success of these countries in this very important evolution was that they took an honest look at the traditional language behavior of their people to find the words and structures that were actually being familiar and used for their national and international, intercommunication, by people who did not share the same language background. Therefore, they moved on to write dictionaries containing the words and grammars describing the structures that the people were already used to. Examples are some GUOSA language words like telewire, meaning telephone. And let me quickly explain a little bit. Telewire is from telephone, T-E-L, it's spelled T-E-L-I-W-A-Y-A. In Nigeria, everybody knows what is wire, meaning it's an adopted language from the Portuguese or from the English. Wire is a common word. And the word tele from the Greek, meaning to tell. So, and then, because we do not have telephone in our native languages, so the GUOSA language have to adjust to meet the international language communication. That's where the telewire came in for telephone. So then another word that is very common in Nigeria is oga. Oga is master. It's a traditional word, meaning boss or master. These are the words most Nigerians have known and used to. Now evolved into the GUOSA language vocabularies. They did not kick away, like the Papua New Guinea, they did not kick away what people, they did not kick away what the people already had in common in order to replace it with something new. Neither did they abandon their traditional vocabulary to run after the best English language speakers, writers, or even the pidgin English. Instead, they collected the words and languages that the people had used to, studied it, described it, and consolidated it into a strong foundation from which they gradually built a truly indigenous and viable national language. As of now, the GUOSA language consists of at least 120 of Nigerians and ECOWAS diverse tongues, and it all began with only 2 languages in its evolutionary conception and birth. The language is made up of carefully detailed units of the different ethnic languages and cultures, so that in the future, Nigeria and the West African regional countries should be able to take their positive stand in the communities of lingua franca nations of the world, such as the East Africa, the North Africa, Europe, America, Asia, and so on. GUOSA-language grammatical system. Invisible or abstract things are of Igbo origin. Invisible or abstract things are of Igbo or Yoruba or other Southern Nigerian languages origin. Evolution from either Igbo and or Yoruba, East or West, depends mainly on the alphabetical sequence. For instance, let us take the word like come, which is English, which meant beer in Igbo language, and a corresponding wa in the Yoruba language, respectively. To decide which word should come first in the GUOSA language or which word should evolve to the GUOSA language, you go on alphabetical sequence. In the above words from Igbo and the Yoruba languages, you will see that bia comes before wa alphabetically. Therefore, a sentence like, please give me water in English is thus evolved and translated as biko fumi ni ruwa in the GUOSA language, because water is ruwa and fumi ni is water is ruwa and fumi ni or fumi refers to give me, which are the verb. Now, you have GUOSA language verb patterns. GUOSA. Sorry, I didn't have time to make enough copy for everybody. You have Ocheto Ajiwa Tishengagida. Ocheto, meaning Ocheto Ajiwa Tishengagida, which means our class monitor has gone home. The evolution of those words are from Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Duki. Ocheto is che in Igbo means to watch or look, take care of. That is in Igbo. To in Yoruba means to also watch, to take care of, to nurture, to protect. So if you want, for the word watch or look after or oversee in GUOSA language is cheto, which is a combination of words from Igbo and Yoruba. Che and to, you got cheto. Then the noun is o. The o describes somebody who is doing something, like oloko, onimoto, and so on and so forth. So when we say o cheto, meaning a watch, somebody keeping watch. So aji in Hausa is class, because in GUOSA language, any visible thing is from the north origin. So it's like you use the north, the northern proper noun to balance the southern verb, adjective, and other parts of speech. So when we say Ochitwajiwa Otishengagida, meaning class monitor has gone home. The next word is Oshihela Kofa, meaning have you opened the door? Oshihe, Shihe in GUOSA meaning open. The Igbo says she, and the Yoruba says she's, and then the Igbo say mehe. Then in GUOSA is shihe. So therefore, Oshihe, Oshihela. La is an bit of equating word, denoting past tense, something that is past done. Shengala. So that is from the Kwere, Kalabari, down south area. So Oshihela Kofa is a question. Kofa is a word meaning door in Hausa. Oshihela Kofa, have you opened the door? And you say, Baasi. Moshihela Kofa, yes. Baasi is yes, I have opened the door. Then you have the GUOSA language present progressive. Aboki means samba, meaning my friend is dancing. Aboki is a general northern word, meaning friend. Me is
a combinative word from Yoruba, from Ishekiri, from Efik, from Iberon. So many Nigerians across the West African region use the word me, meaning first person pronoun. NG is a present continuous, part of speech. Mon lo, mon shenga. So already these are words that are familiar in the Nigerian populace. So I said Aboki means samba. Then the word samba came into the GUOSA language like every language borrowed from one other, whether national or internationally. When I was writing and evolving the GUOSA language, the Brazilian samba was playing in Lagos as at that time. That was the very time I was on the word dancing. So then I said, okay, since every word, every language borrow words from international, from other countries, let me pull the word samba to reflect the Brazilian samba. After all, Brazilian people, I understand, they migrated from Lagos during the during the slave era. So these are the deep cultural evolution of the language, and you have them in that dictionary. So then, kaza mi mumbikwe, my hen is laying egg. Then I will take another time to start to explain the different word roots. They are all interconnected here and there. Then Adum Goma Fifeja Mohusina, Belgium. 10 years ago, I was living in Belgium. So the English translation is wrong. There's a typographical error there. But Adum is a word meaning year in the GUOSA language. Igbo says Aro, Yoruba say Odun, but in GUOSA you abbreviate it Adum. Goma is a word in Hausa meaning 10. Fifeja, gone, that's past. More Husi. Husi is a word from down, Agbo area in Cross River State. So I have all this documented, like I said. Then to rush on, our Mukok Asusu GUOSA, we are learning the GUOSA language, and so on and so forth. So immediate assistance needed. This comes to what Reverend Father Ray was asking. I stated here, in view of the fact that no one is born to live forever, I am appealing to you all to offer me the assistance, the financial assistance, to be able to set up the trainers program of the GUOSA language, first in Abuja and then extend it to other West African nations through the students who have been trained. I have drawn up the trainers educational program, but I just need a little push financially to relocate and to enable me to visit Nigeria for a longer time, during which I will mobilize the initial students and school calendar. This program will also serve as the nucleus to the business venture of the GUOSA language. In other words, the language has a lot of business prospects. Also, I am appealing that the GUOSA language should be looked into as an untapped huge business venture for investors at home and abroad, because there will be endless financial gold mine to business groups or individuals who have foresight now to work with us. Some of the gold opportunities are teaching instructors, books, publishing and sales, academic research and development, professional titles, awards, evolution of more words from other West African language groups, etc., etc. The initial trainer program is expected to cost $20,000. And I will appreciate if this conference could discuss and implement some of the urgently needed practical approach to the success of finding a united, authentic, long-lasting solution to Nigeria and ECOWAS common lingua franca using the GUOSA language evolution as one of the bases. Let me end this address by saying that at some point in our lives, we should learn to set history aside in order to make history. And if there is the will to succeed,
somehow, somewhere, somewhere, sometime, some point, there will be a way. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you very much. And that's really a mouthful of course, language. So the weights and the strategies and all those things, and thinking about it actually while listening. By the way, even when I stepped out to take care of business, I was still listening. And while listening, I was just thinking about this, the brilliance behind it. And knowing fully well that all along, I don't know, the history didn't give me, I didn't see from the history that there have been a lot of hands that have been involved in this. But the brain behind it, the effort, and all those over the years, the perseverance, the whole notion and the root of it all is just fascinating to me. And I thank you very much. So, in line with the way we've been doing it before, I will actually give somebody the mic to say something about it, just to react to what we just heard.
Well, first of all, I really want to thank Alex for his sense of vision, the global vision, for Nigeria in terms of national language franca. It's not easy for somebody to really, come up and say, hey, this is what I want to do, for my country. And, your intellectual versatility to being able to really know so many Nigerian, indigenous language and really want to put this, together. I mean, it's very fascinating. So we really have to, thank you. This has been your lifetime, vision, and you've been working on this for so long. So I think the challenge facing us now, is, what can we do to make this to happen, on the national level. So I would like us, to kind of talk about what can we really do to make sure that this GUOSA language is something that is really good to recognize, in Nigeria, and something that will be integrated, into our national ventures. So that's a challenge. That's what I'm thinking. Then the other part of it, the financial aspect, because you really need money to be able to make this, to happen. How we'll be able to reach out to different, organizations, individuals or foundations, how people can be able to make contribution financially to see that this is going to happen. And then the other thing too, I know some folks are kind of be helping you, all this time, right? But the only thing, you are kind of the only one who can carry this on your head, I think you need a committee, a group of folks, who are really going to help you to do this. Committee here in the United States, and also committee back, back home in Nigeria. So those are some of the things that we need to look at, who can be a part of this committee, to really take this project and run with it, So that's what I'm thinking, what we can do to be able to set up a committee, to be able to generate some funds, and then to make this, GUOSA language to happen. Thank you.
My name is Carolyn, and I'm an African American born and raised. We lost our language. We came here, we were forced to speak English, beaten out of our language. And I appreciate Alice giving me the opportunity to be one of the first students when he had the GUOSA language class in Contra Costa County. I think what he's done, I've watched him over the years in his dedication. I know him and his former wife very well. I watched his dedication in this, and I think it's very, very good. I think it's divinely invoked by the heavens for him to do this. I think doing it nationally in Nigeria, from what I can say, that might be good, is to start with the children, the kids that are in elementary school and primary school. Make little storybooks, the national books that they know, the Christian stories, put it in GUOSA. Set it to music and rhyme in GUOSA. Add dance to it. Because as a child, you will remember that. Here in America, in elementary school, I'm in the state of Florida. Florida has no other language there at that time. Those folks decided to teach us black kids Spanish in elementary school. I remembered it until junior high school. Okay, and they did it in song, and they did it in dance. And I think this would be a great base to start there. Another thing that I think might be good is to consider having a radio station, a GUOSA-language radio station, where the talk shows are heard over internationally, over the nation of Nigeria, where you discuss topics that are important to all of the people there. And by the way you have the language set up, it sounds to me that it would be very easy for them to pick up on what's being said because of the way you have structured it. And also on that radio station, to get them to come in, have business advertise in GUOSA. And also have music. Some of the, maybe the famous songwriters rewrite some of their music in GUOSA, play it over the radio. And then we don't want to miss out on the wonderful thing called a cell phone. I don't know if you know about our American kids, but one of the ways that we keep our American kids in place is give them a cell phone, not to, or an iPad, not to talk on it, but to play those games. You put those, yeah, you put those games in GUOSA, either attach it to GUOSA music, you know, where they hear the song in that language, or they have to play the game in that language. I think that would be a great base also for people that know how to write programming to make a lot of money here. I think that would be wonderful. And I wish Alex the best. I also, like you said, you can't live forever. So I'm praying that God provides you with young people of all ages that are willing to take this on until it becomes a national thing.
Anybody else?
Well, for it's necessary we say one or two things, just to take off from where she has stopped. You know very well that this GUOSA is making an incursion into an area where existing indigenous languages are not faring very well. So it's an added task in the sense that if I remember, when I went to drama school, we were told that we had to study French. And in my days in secondary school, we studied Latin. I attended a Catholic school. So I studied Latin. Now I was forced to, take French as an elective, which of course was compulsory. And I still remember what I went through trying to meet up, because I realized that some of my colleagues had learned French in secondary school. They had attended, secondary school after our own time, so French had become a subject. Now, the interesting thing was that after the first year, when French was no more compulsory, I still registered French in my second year, and people thought I was crazy. But then it was the interest that had generated in me to learn the French language. So now, GUOSA is, coming into an arena where, for example, the Nigerian kid is not studying Hausa or Yoruba or Igbo. So it's a serious challenge. Then Secondly, well, you have mentioned the fact that you need to train people. But then how long are we going to train them for one to be proficient to teach this very language? That is also an issue. Because for us in NICO, we get resource persons from the universities or colleges of education around us, and we know what we are going through. But then, like I mentioned in my presentation, if somebody comes who I read Hausa, we grab that person. I read Yoruba. When we had a chance, if you read any of these, Nigerian languages, and you came to me for employment, I don't look back. I just quickly grab you and send you to the necessary department, and that's where you rightly belong. So what I'm trying to say is that it's good we are starting in a purposeful way. She has highlighted a couple of areas that we may have to look at. I'm happy, in your program you mentioned something about, a working committee to really look at some of these things. Because we have seen people who are really interested. Of course, anybody, if you are not interested, then it means you have no future. Your children don't have any future. So it's a good thing, but these are some of the areas that we have to look at. It's not just one for the educational system to say, okay, we are going to teach GUOSA language. One, the teaching personnel have to be there. Then they have to even develop an orthography of the language. So now say yes, and I know that CBAC, right? Yes. Okay, CBAC has developed an orthography for just 4 Nigerian languages: Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, and Ijaw. Only these 4. So other languages, they still have to work on them. And if GUOSA has to be accepted, the orthography has to be looked at so that whoever is reading GUOSA in US is the same way the word will be pronounced with somebody learning it in Calabar. So these are aspects that we really need to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yakoroma. Like I said before, impossibility, I don't see it at all. With God, all things are possible, especially all good things are possible. I appreciate the points you raised. I have taken them into deep consideration, and I was given the opportunity some years ago. You even had it from one of my students, Ms. Caroline, at the Contra Costa College. They included into their school syllabus, and they were paying me every Saturday to come and train the summer adult. See, with children in Nigeria, GUOSA is easily assimilable. They can easily catch it up. I remember on 2 or 3 occasions I traveled to Nigeria. I did experimental evidences. First, I went to Ogba College in Ikeja. Before I finished my introduction, which was about 40-45 minutes, the children already ran away with the GUOSA words. One of them came to me, said, "Uncle, what do you call I love you?" And then I told her, as soon as I told, he ran away, went to tell the other student, and the other student tell the other one. And I told him, I said, I love you, Mohu Fe. Mohu Fe, Ihufe is love in GUOSA, which Ihunaya and Ife combined, Ihufe. So the child spoke to a couple of other ones. Then the other one came to me, said, "Where do you come from?" No, they were so interested. So these are the raw material, excuse me if I use that word. These are the target audience. And with this kind of people, it won't take you more than at least 3 to 6 months. People start to speak elementary GUOSA. And the policy side of it, or the orthography side of it, will come in. Like we already said just now, if you don't speak a language will not speak you. If the language is well known and spoken by people, by children, and play, like Ms. Caroline put it, I have a couple of music here in the YouTube already. I even use a song with the president, the Excellency Jonathan, during his campaign. It's on YouTube. So these are little ways. And again, when the language is taught in Nigeria, it won't take much long to learn. Coupled with the fact that where Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba fail, GUOSA will break through. Why? Because of the interest. If the interest is not there, nobody will learn a language that has no interest from his own mother tongue. GUOSA embodies every other language. So there's no question of, oh, I don't want to speak Igbo, oh, I don't want to speak Yoruba. Yoruba is here. Ghana, some words from Ghana is here. So we are all embodied into one. That is the fundamental interest. If you are not interested in a language, even if they knock it on your head, you're not going to learn it. And what brings about interest is one, that yours is there, mine is there, hers is there. That is the fundamental interest that will make everybody learn the language, and the children will run away faster before you know it. Thank you.
Where I see the challenge for GUOSA is this. Most languages are spoken. This is an original language. It's not being spoken today. But you have to develop a way to communicate this language to people. How do you get people to speak GUOSA language? It's not like the Yoruba or the Igbo or the Hausa that are being spoken by millions of people. GUOSA is an original language brought about by your ingenuity, your genius, you know. So it will be difficult to start. Initial challenges are how do you get people to speak GUOSA, you know.
Like I said before, the children are the initial speakers. They will grow with it. Remember, I said before, in Nigeria today, the Chinese are intruding into our cultural and language system. With all the way from China, they're not teaching Chinese language in our school. Who are they teaching? Nigerians. Your children, my children will left back at home. And these children are catching up with China language. Why they cannot catch up with Igbo or Yoruba or Urobo? Whereas GUOSA is a language made of words from every one Nigerian ethnic group, which brings about the unity in diversity. Once the children already know they have a great interest for it, and the adults they do, they encourage me to this very level. The all remaining now is for me to go home and set up a trainer focusing on the youth, and the youth will pick it up. They are the initial speakers. A language is spoken, it doesn't matter where you come from. When I introduce it into the school district at the Contractor College, actually I call it Nigerian language. You know what they told me? That they will not accept it into their school system until I expand it to cover West African countries. So that when they travel from here to anywhere in the world, to West Africa, Nigeria, or Ghana, they want to have a common language like the Swahili that covers the East. And then I went to the dashboard. I said, look at it. Since the structure is already laid, then I expanded it to cover West African regional countries. By the time I set up another committee with them, it didn't take me 2-3 minutes, they say, okay, we now see the viability of it, that you are not being selfish with Nigeria, that you now have a big heart. That's how they do it.
Let me just add that we have to start from somewhere. And in that regard, the funding is very critical. So I think I want to suggest that we organize some formal fundraising activities where we can generate the industry funds for the trainer programs and for camping for children. Because like we have stated, it's better to start with the children. I think that would be a good starting point.
It's just a quick comment, and that is, who stands in front of the children to teach? Teachers. They have to go through training. I don't know how it is in Nigeria, but here the teachers have to do what's called an internship program. That's one thing. And then the teachers here have to get what they call recertified to maintain their teaching credentials. In other words, they call it these things continuing education credits. So an idea is to start with the college students studying to be teachers, nurses, or someone that's going to be going into the community, your social workers, making the GUOSA language in the college available for them to take as a class, as maybe a minor in it or whatever. And have those teachers, when they go out there, at least they know elementary GUOSA, to start teaching it in the school. The teachers that have not graduated can be interns, and it could be part of their internship. I don't know if you guys have internship, where they're studying for the masters or they're studying for the doctors. And this program is an independent study program where they go out into the community after they've taken the basic GUOSA 101. And they go out into the community where the kids are and stand before them and teach, maybe one day a week in that language, math or some other subject.
Yeah, another way to address the situation, like I was appealing to the executive secretary the other day. My real problem actually is sustaining myself in Abuja for at least 3 to 6 months. If I'm able to do that, and the executive secretary give us permission, this language could be floated and ask people to sign up at the National Institute for Cultural Orientation as part of the languages offered. After all, the West Contracoastal Unified School District, that's what they did, you remember? They put it on their newsletter, people to sign up, and then African Americans, they signed up. We had about 15 or 16 students, and they collected token fee from them, part of which they were paying me. I know they added to what they were paying me to teach the language. So the same thing I'm saying, the business aspect can be explored by NICO. NICO helped to push it up a little. People sign up, or at least initially it might be free or a little something. Once it gets going, I'm sure the NTA is there, the newspaper industry, they carry out the breaking ground in a new communication and language. You see the awareness and the enthusiasm, the interest comes up. And once the students comes up to a reasonable level, NICO can even now start, so, okay, they are coming, we can maybe collect $5 or whatever from them. That is business. Because people who learn the language, during the training, while training them, they'll be writing all these books we are talking, this storybook. And it happened at Gaskia College many years ago when I was writing the dictionary. One, Mr. B.C. Lawrence or something like that, he was the principal. He gave me opportunity to come to that school, Gaskia College, once, I think once or twice a month. When I went there on 2 occasions, the first time, second time, somebody already wrote a booklet of the training he received. I still have a copy of that book, something with GUOSA-LANGUAGE or so. He wrote a book already on elementary GUOSA. So the same thing, if the language is introduced into the next NICO students, you will find out that before the first lesson to second lesson, people will come up with little instructional books. And that is how the business side will start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. And
oh, sorry. It's okay.
Well, I'm still emphasizing, having a system in place. If you look at, Jesus, just giving permission going into the Bible here. I mean, when Jesus came and wanted to proclaim the word of God, of course he did a lot, but what he did was that he had to choose, the disciples, the apostles, 12 of them. Okay, 12 of them. They were the ones that helped him to continue with the proclamation of God's message. He even sent them, okay, to different places. Look at it today. Christianity is all over the whole world. Okay, and Christ didn't go to all the other countries. We're just mostly in the Middle East. Okay, and the disciples, they were the ones that took it, that ran with it. Jesus Christ was just on earth just for 3 years. Okay, 3 years, that was when he started the message. Okay. And so I think we need to look into that too. Well, it seems that, Alex, you are doing most of the work by yourself. People are kind of chipping in and helping you here. You're talking about, you going to Abuja, to give some training to a group of kids, please be okay. But if you have a plan in place, you don't even need to be in Abuja. If there are people who are in this committee, who are really going to work with you, I know it's not easy to get dedicated, committed people. I know it's a challenge among our people, okay? It is. No doubt about it, okay? But the point is that if you can look into that, I'm sure there are still some folks out there who will be willing to make a commitment. You need a committee. You need a group of people that will work with you. Even all these different endeavors talking about the fundraising and all that, you're not going to be able to do all of them by yourself. But you need this group, people whom you'll be talking with from time to time, be on a weekly basis, be on a monthly basis. People can help you to strategize, to plan, to come up with different plans and ideas. Look at great ideas that have come here today. Okay, what is going to happen after this? Is it just are we just going to talk about it and just, leave the whole thing there? The implementation, we have to plan. You need a group of people who are going to help you to implement a lot of these things. How these ideas, could be utilized. So I think this is a very important area that needs to be looked into, needs to be addressed, for you to have a group of people and to have a system to be able to make this GUOSA language, to happen, to continue. And, this group of people are going to help you. And then you see how you're going to train. You're going to train people who are going to teach this GUOSA language. You need a group of people. And then from this committee group of people, perhaps you train them and they'll be the ones to continue with it. So I think it's an area that you need to look at so that you'll be able to make this GUOSA language, happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Reverend, for that. Can we now say we should set up a committee right here? Because like you said, it's no good we just talk and to the tent of Israel and everything is done with. Can we set up, because there are two ways we can have the standard committee, or the home committee, or one committee that takes care of both here and there. But this committee need to be able to take care of me when I go to Nigeria to train the youth. And from the youth, you'll be surprised we have committed disciples. Like Jesus Christ did, you mentioned. He moved around and talked to people, not just in one place. He was going from one point to. So I'm sure when I get to that country, Nigeria and Abuja, and start the first week, second week, and third, I will get youth who are committed, who will grow up in this system and be the flag bearer. But for me to move from point A to point B, that is the crucial problem which the committee should address. Thank you.
First of all, you don't have enough people here to form a committee. And you have to grow more people, approach more people, take the message to a lot more people. Then you can have a committee out of the number of people that come. Right now, except for 2 members of NICO here, and Reverend Father Abumori and Mrs. Moluzo, what committee can you have? So we need to grow this GUOSA language to more people, so you can have a committee out of the many that come to you. Jesus preached his gospel, and out of the gospel, he was going to get 12 out of the many people that came. So right now, we're in a growing stage. So you need more years of development, in order to get your committee and those that will work with you.
Let me just, from Nigerian Indigenous language program experience. When we started the program, we said people should register with 10,000. But as at now, it is free because of the poor response. When we will provide the materials for participants, because people, and in the northern states, we made it 5,000, then to 2,000. People did not respond. And because of that, we now said it's free. Even at that being free, especially in Abuja, the response is not up to our expectation. But I know that, like this 1-month program in Mina, they have about 150 participants. Some of the, even Gombe, there are some places that people are enthusiastic about it. But Lagos, Abuja, everybody is thinking of, there's what we call stomach infrastructure. Yeah, so it's quite a challenge. So it has to be, like he mentioned, it has to be a gradual process. It's not something that I believe you can just overnight achieve. For us, like in government, there has to be provision for government to say, okay, this is a critical program, so let's make it a policy issue. So let us make provision for capacity building in GUOSA language. Once that happens, it's easy, and that is assuming that the money will be released, because we have realized that it's one thing to budget for a program and another thing for that money to be released for you to execute the program. So there are two sides of the coins. I think I quite agree that it has to be a gradual process. Please.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, it has to be a gradual process, no doubt. The only gray area I'm concerned, like I said in my speech, it would have been an accomplishment for everybody, both Nigeria, everywhere, all over the world, that this, at least I'm able to at least train some youth who will continue the gradual process. For instance, I had a stroke in 2011. It's just the grace of God that I'm still here talking. The success of the language and the unity of the country, the language content will not see the light of the day when the propagator is nowhere to be found. So that is why I'm still emphasizing on the urgent need. I'm not saying GUOSA will just blossom overnight as people start to speak it. Once you have it in place, at least we now have a dictionary. We have the speakers who have been trained. These are the disciples who will now say, okay, let's refer to books so, this is what it is, this is what about it. But if I give you this big dictionary, where is it? Right. Somewhere. Thank you. If I dash you this book, I bet you won't know you won't find your way out of it. I still have to, interpret or explain. That is my serious area of concern about the gradual process. It's still going to be gradual, but just to train at least a handful. And these are going to be youth, because we adults, we are too, our brain don't take language as much as when we are young. So that is still why I'm still appealing for this meeting. While I thank you all, I can't thank you all enough from the bottom of my heart, particularly Dr. Ayakoroma. You are a wonderful person, sir. Thank you very much, because honestly, I don't know how to describe you. You know what happened? I went to his office in 2011 to look for him, to let him know about the language. I got to the office, the secretary said, Oga is not there, Oga is not there. I said, can I leave a message? No. Can I call him? No. Can you give me his phone number? No. Everything, no. At the end, I went again. He is there in the meeting. I said, can I slip a note? Oga said, no. Oh, my goodness, I said, what kind of what is this? So I went to Mr. Olusha or something. Yeah. I explained to Olusha. I think Mr. Olusha brought it to your attention. And to my wonderful, until tomorrow, it still marvel me how you got the idea just like this. Very unlike Nigerian bosses. Dr. Ayakoroma got this thing. He even called me that he buy this idea. I said, wow, I never talked to him, I didn't see him. That is how we have continued the communication since then. For somebody just talk to him through somebody and he got the idea. I just don't know how to explain. Tomorrow I will never know how to explain. So please, sir, if I'm in the dream, I'm thanking you. If I'm working, thank you very much. And thank you very much. Thank everybody. Reverend, Father, you the one who set the ball rolling many years ago. Remember the same thing. I did not preach. Everybody who are here, I didn't do too much preaching about it. And that encouraged me a lot. There are those you talk to, you plead, you do this, you still don't get it. Thank you.
Right. I just want to thank Dr. Ayakoroma for being able to come and for the vital role he's playing, to assist Alex, and also Alex too. I just want to thank both of you, because one of the challenges that really faces us is being able to get things done, back in Nigeria.
and even to be able to get people to, who will give you, some attention, to be able to listen to you. You not just only listen to others, but, coming all the way to the United States, and coming to make this presentation, it's just amazing. So I just want to mention to both of you that we still really need you. What can we really do to make, NICO a part of the world GUOSA-LANGUAGE, to be a part of NICO program, back home. Whether it is possible to, how we can have an inroad into the government so that it can be made like, a policy. If it is possible for people to put a word in there, to really give, GUOSA-LANGUAGE, give it a light, that like this is a language that we really need to look into, that need to be considered. It would be wonderful. So we really, allow you, you can really help us, it would be wonderful. And then the other thing too, just as we saying, Alice, you really, I'll keep on emphasizing this, you need a committee here in the United States, you do. You were talking about your health situation. Nobody's going to live forever, okay? You need folks who are going to take this thing on, we're going to continue with it, We pray you're going to be with us for a long time, all right? Amen. But even, even while we are alive, you can't do this just by yourself, okay? So the point is that we are saying, okay, let's start slowly. It's okay, we can start slowly, but we've got to do something, And then even to set up this committee, we have to do it on a personal level. You have to talk to people. You have to call people on the phone. You have to speak to them. It's not just when you come together like this at the conference. No, we have to take on the phone, call people. People you think will be able to help you out. Talk to them all over the Bay Area, and talk to them so that they can be a part of the committee. So a word of mouth, that is one of the powerful ways you can do it. Word of mouth. So I'm sure you do have some combination, your network here in the Bay Area that you can talk to and let those people be a part of this committee. People can, take it and run with it, and help you to plan and execute some of these things we're talking about. Thank you.
Can we now start this committee, at least putting our names down? Because, like we said, we can't just talk now and vamos from here. We can set up this committee and give it a name and give it a mandate. If that's what we have done today, that is an accomplishment.
Thank you, everybody. And excuse me. This is very interesting. I think I'm actually listening to everybody here and what's going on. I think I'm actually finding myself in a very, very challenged position in the moderator or the MC. Honestly speaking. And I also feel somehow sorry for Dr. Yakupekerome in a way. Now, this is the situation, and my sister here might not understand. So, this is an evolved language. And I don't even feel sorry for Alex, because he's still there, he's still working on it, he has built something. And I'm actually going to give you a little bit of challenge, in as much as this is community thing, national thing. Have you ever thought about kind of patenting what you have, copywriting it? Have you ever thought about it? Now, you are thinking about when you are not here. This might not even happen when we are here. It might happen 100 years to come. But your hand is still there. You've done something that a lot of people have not done. But then, talking about having system in place, the Nigerian government does not have a hand in this. It has not been approved. They are even finding it difficult to, just like my brother here has said, they're even finding it difficult to implement the use of, the training, the education in Nigerian languages, let alone a language that has not even started. But then, that doesn't even stop it from taking place. Look at all these rubbish texting words that we're using, internet words that we're using. Who approved it in the first place? Now, how did it come all over in everybody's laptop? You have you are being your, and we have to speak that internet speak, text speak. How did it come about? When we were growing up, in my language, Igbo language, when we were growing up, when we didn't want like the adults to understand what we were saying, and we were stupid enough not to know that the adults also did the same thing. They know that language. we'll turn Igbo language around. So we call it Iye. So we put the words should start at the beginning, we put it at the end, and all those things, and it's like Canadian language. So it was all over the place. Okay, so that nobody approved that, but it was all over the place. Okay, in a different way. Can it be sold to our government? Definitely yes. Military. Think about Morse code. Think about Nigeria doesn't even have a way to communicate, can use it to communicate to the military.
Intelligence.
It can be used for intelligence. You can market it a different way. You can even market it to another country, Nigeria or US. Don't ever think that you've lost anything by not making it a Nigerian language. You might or might not make it a Nigerian language. You might still make it a method of communication. So there is something that you sandwich there. So personally, what I'm actually interested in is in the strategies. The strategy of pulling them together. I'm not a linguist, actually. So how you bidded them together. If people are able to get the way it was bidded together, and they know their languages, their root language, that's why I keep saying the root languages, then you can put all of them together. Look at our Pidgin English, for goodness sake. Who taught me Pidgin English? Nobody taught me Pidgin English. It was just being spoken here and there, and there is no sequence. You can mix and match your native language